Morning. It is Tuesday, the 24th, and somehow we're already here, which is crazy. And um, I don't know how it's the end of May already. Like, how did that happen? Um, it has been a crazy month around here. Um, and part of what I want to talk to you about today is whether or not your website is actually enough. A lot of the times I talk about your website being integral to um, everything that you're doing, right? Your website is absolutely integral to marketing your business because the very first thing that people do to check and see if you're legit is they Google you. So you absolutely have to have one. Um, but especially if you're not a big name, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're a small business, whether you're a trade, whatever you are, whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't include enough information on your website to help people really get to know you and choose you, if you're not delivering your brand promise on your website, if you are not showing people what the process of working with you is like, there are some huge missed opportunities and people will absolutely click off into the sunset. So I want to put this in the framework of an experience that we had in the last couple of weeks, because I think it shows just how important this is. And granted, I may be a little more sensitive to this because this is what I do. But backstory is that we want to put solar panels on our house. We live sort of out in the country, sort of not in the semi-rural place. And power does go down. There are a lot of overhead power lines in our area. And we get a lot of wind and all the things, storms. So our power does go down periodically. And we've been talking about a backup generator. And then it's like, you know what, maybe we should look into solar energy. And that way we can not contribute to power grid woes, like all the things. Plus, of course, it's the fact that it's like really, really good for the environment and sustainable. So Facebook ads being what they are targeted us. And it was like, okay, so yeah, let's talk to these people. And so this guy came out. He is a very, very nice person. And I truly believe that he is legitimate. And gave us all these quotes and was like, okay, think about it. We can schedule a time to come back. So I did some searching. I'm like, I don't find a whole lot on this company, not the end of the world, right? The reviews online are good. They are not local, which, there's a lot of reasons that I'd want to buy from a local company, but, they're not local either. They're within a couple hours drive. So I realize I may also have a skewed perspective on what's local and what's not, but there's some benefits there, especially when we're talking about something that may need to be serviced, where we may need to call for advice, all the things. So there's benefits to having someone who can actually show up and be there. But here's the thing. When we got ready to sign the contract, they were like, oh, well, just give us a check first. And it's like, no, I want to see the contract first. Well, we'll put the check in the contract. It's like, no, absolutely not. I want to see what it is that we're signing. Because if I have questions, I want to know that, we're not just signing away for $60,000, which is a huge investment. It's a huge investment. And it will absolutely pay off over the lifetime of our home, both in terms of home value, in terms of decreased energy costs, independence, plus this battery backup, which is huge for when the power goes down. But when I dug deeper on their website, because this threw up some red flags, there was no information on who the founder is, who the team is. Found out that the guy who came out to our home didn't actually work for the company that we would be hiring. He was like an intermediary sales team, which is fine. Like every business has to work differently. But there wasn't any information on his company either. It was a baseline website. It was a beautiful website, but there was no information. It was like very, very thin on information. It was something that was literally just thrown out to show, hey, we're legit, with nothing to back it up. And the company that we were looking at ultimately hiring also had a very low digital footprint. They had a Facebook page that was periodically updated, but there was no real information. There were no reviews from people local to us. There was no referral information. And again, they had a good standing with the BBB, so I think they're okay. But when we finally got a copy of the contract, the sales guy had no idea what was in it. Neither did his team. He didn't know the name of the owner. They had to get it. And I just, or any of our main contacts that would be at this other company, and it made us pump the brakes. And then I was thinking, and this is the email that I sent out um, to my group last week. Your website is not enough. Um, and that's interesting because a lot of what I talk about is that you absolutely need a website to show you're legit. It is essential to have one, but you also need more. You need more than just a website to show up into the world, prove that you are a real human or a real business doing real things. You need a marketing plan. You need a website that is more than a single page that actually talks about what you do. It talks about your process. It talks about what it's like to work with you. It talks about your why, your founders. And I feel like this is all really important. And there's room to make errors. There are absolutely places where you can make errors, but you also need to own everything about your sales process. There needs to be consistency between what your sales team is promising or what you're promising in sales, what your contract delivers, and what you deliver. And your website is kind of like this unifying force that ties it all together. You also, if you're going into a new area, need to have some profiles for people that work with the company that people might expect to interact with. And it doesn't have to be amazing, right? I think that's the biggest takeaway. It doesn't have to be amazing. You don't have to be the next Wendy's who has the most amazing social presence ever, right? You don't need to be the best. You don't need to show up 100% of the time. What you do absolutely need to do is to show your why. You need to show up. You need to let people get to know you and your company. And you need to not dismiss people's questions. We sent an email with our concerns to the company, and we have not yet heard back on any of them. And I mean, I don't know about most of you, but most of you are either business owners or highly positioned within your company. If you got an email with someone talking about some red flags, wouldn't you want to speak to that immediately? Wouldn't you want to say, "Oh, this is not the experience that we want people to have. These are some really big opportunities to grow." Wouldn't you want to respond to that immediately? So all of these things, unfortunately, I'm not sure that we're going to be working with this company because there was no kind of like, I'd call this like crisis communication, but there was no response of like, hey, I'm sorry that you had this experience. Can we look into this? How can we help? What information can we give you? Because I guarantee if I have these questions, so do other people. And therefore it's an opportunity to increase your business, to grow your business, to increase that personal touch. Because as my friend Raven Douglas says, every touch point is an opportunity to improve the customer experience. And so I feel like there's some gaps, and all of our businesses have gaps. I think that's the other important thing. We all have gaps. We all have ways that we can improve. We all can find a better way of doing things. The challenge, of course, is that we've got to figure out a way to do it that's sustainable to us, because you can't physically be everywhere all the time. Had the owner of this company had I not had to dig super deep, I probably could have found more information on them, right? So if it was just present in the about page of the website, if it was just present on some of this other information, I feel like it would have been much easier to do some due diligence. But yeah, so first of all, we still want to put solar panels up. Second of all, regardless of who you serve, whether you serve businesses, whether you serve residential, whether you serve consumers direct, like whatever it is that you sell, whatever it is that you do, think about what your expectations would be if someone came in and wanted to buy from you. Think about what problems they might be coming in to solve at different points of the way. Think about like how big of an investment this is. If you are selling $5 to $20 products, it's not nearly as big of a thing as if you're selling $500 or $5,000 products, as like compared with $50,000 to $60,000 products. So there's a certain amount of overcoming objections of social proof that's absolutely 100% needed. Because of the investment. So be thinking about what that might look like. Be thinking about how you can upgrade the customer experience. Be thinking about, hey, we're coming into someone's home. Maybe we should leave them with some materials that are branded that have some really valuable information that are helpful to them to think over. Um, and I get it's not necessarily sustainable, right? I get that it's not, um, if we're in a sustainable industry, which solar panels are, and I've worked on some really cool solar panel website projects. Um, Obviously, not this company. um, you still have to leave something behind. You have to leave something. And maybe it's printed on recycled paper. Maybe, I feel like there are just some other ways that you can do things to improve that customer experience. So, um, yeah, I think it's challenging. And yes, the website isn't enough. You have to have something else to back it up. You have to be able to have some other presence. Um, Including being willing to hop on a call. So interestingly enough, we called that company, the main company the next day, just be like, "Do these guys really work for you?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, of course they do." And I said, "You know what really threw me was the fact that you wanted me to write you a check before I even saw the contract, and the fact that the guys didn't know what was in the contract." And I think what's extremely important there is that they weren't like, "Oh, yeah, I can see we have some education to do." None of that. They're like, "Oh, well, that's just how online business works." And I said, "Respectfully, I run an online business, and that is not how it works." I don't wanna name the company, I don't wanna put them on blast. Um, but the thing is that there are opportunities, and the way that you educate the consumer is like, "Oh, yeah, of course, you wanna see the contract ahead of time." Um, you don't just dismiss it with like, "Oh, that's just how it works," because that's not how it has to work. There are any number of things, that you can do to make it work for your audience. Anyway, I feel like I've ranted here. It was not intended to be a rant, but if you are interested in some actionable things you can do, I'd encourage you to join my newsletter. It is, erinpennings.com/newsletter. It is in the comments here that you can see right in the description of this video. I think that there's a lot to learn. So what do you do if if you have a website that's not enough? Add a social presence. Make sure it's linked to your website. Make sure that the links on your website are mostly working. We all have issues that crop up. Like I recently discovered that my contact page wasn't working. Oops. So that's fixed now. Um, but make more information available. Err on the side of more information than is needed, as long as it's organized well on the page, so that people can truly get to know you, or hire an expert to help you write your website copy and give you the suggestions for how you can continue to show up. So, could your website be enough? Possibly. The way that most people have their websites done, probably not. So I certainly invite discussion. I would love to chat with you further about how to improve the positioning of your website, how to get people there once you have a really good one, and what it is that you need to do to back up those promises in the actual sales process. So I hope you all have an amazing week. Tomorrow I will be back here with my friend Brian Grover, who you met a couple weeks ago. And I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about, but it is guaranteed to be awesome. And there are guaranteed to be some amazing book recommendations that come out of it.